The Eiffel Tower is over 100 years old, but following painstaking restoration work, it is more dazzling and fascinating than ever. Despite the presence of the spectacular skyscrapers of Ile de France, it continues to be the most immediate symbol of French modernity. When it was built for the World Expo, it created a scandal because of its stylistic audacity, and many were astonished by the ability of technology to tackle its static engineering problems. Despite the catastrophic forecasts about how long it would last, the tower designed by engineer Gustave Eiffel and made entirely of steel is still solidly in place and has now become the symbol of Paris. The tower is 307 meters high, or 325 meters if we count the antenna. From the Eiffel Tower, we'll go to the nearby metro station of Bir-Hakeim to head towards Étoile. Here, we'll change trains for the RER Rapid Line that will bring us to Défense Grande Arche. We come to the immense cube of the Grande Arche, clad in white marble, as soon as we leave the metro station. This is the heart of Ile de France, the new business district. In the background, we can see the skyscrapers that have earned Ile de France the moniker of the Parisian Manhattan. As we walk through the broad pedestrian esplanades of the Quarter, we can glimpse the proud face of 21st century Paris, intent on competing with the most magnificent urban projects completed on the American continent. The Grande Arche is the endpoint of the long perspective that starts at the Arc de Triomphe. Paris's most celebrated flea market is held near Porte de Clignancourt, on the northern outskirts. We'll take the underground to La Villette, another area on the northern end of Paris. Its older stations are decorated with delightful canopies and stairways in the Art Nouveau style. The Park of La Villette, a full-fledged city devoted to science and music, was built in the broad northern area that once housed the city's slaughterhouses. The large sphere of the Géode, the Cité de la Musique, and the Museum of Science and Industry are part of La Villette. The Géode flaunts a magical mirrored surface, and inside it films are projected on a 180-degree screen. The complex was designed as a cultural theme park, also offering fun and entertainment for all ages. About 50 kilometers away, in the forest of Fontainebleau, is the beautiful French castle where Francis I invited numerous Italian artists to decorate the palace. The so-called Fontainebleau School gave rise to a unique and highly refined style. The Royal Palace of Versailles is located about 20 kilometers from Paris. This is where Louis XIV celebrated the triumph of absolute monarchy, forcing his court and noblemen to live in his palace as subordinates. The cost took an enormous toll on the country's coffers, but in this way, the king eliminated the danger of possible revolts by troublesome aristocrats. With the court of Versailles, Paris truly became the sole center of the country and the place that was to mirror all of France from then on. The architecture is the work of Louis Le Vau and Adrien Mansart, whereas the Paris is the masterpiece of André Le Nôtre. The palace took nearly half a century to build, and work began in the mid-17th century. The model of Versailles was imitated across Europe, and in particular it inspired the Potsdam Palace of Frederick of Prussia, the Castle of Schönbrunn in Vienna, and the Royal Palace of Caserta, built by the Bourbon family of Naples. The gardens in the Park of Versailles were designed as an extension of the palace halls. The model of the gardens created by Le Nôtre, which later became known as French gardens, express man's dominion over nature in monumental forms. The Grand Trianon was built as a private refuge for Louis XIV and his mistress, who used it as a way to escape the rigid etiquette of courtly life that the sovereign himself had created and imposed on dignitaries and courtiers. Instead, the Petit Trianon was the gift of Louis XV to his mistress, Madame de Pompadour, who had an enormous sway of the public life of France. Several years later, the Petit Trianon was the home of Marie Antoinette, and at the beginning of the 19th century, it became the property of Napoleon's sister, Pauline Borghese. Set in a corner of the park, across from the little lake that reflects the English Garden, is Le Hameau, the idyllic village built for Marie Antoinette, who loved to take refuge in a dream of simplicity, or perhaps in a world of total delirium. Extremes paradoxically come together in Versailles. Absolute power seems to border on a desire for irresponsibility, and the king seems eager to abdicate from the almost divine task he had set for himself. Paris has been rebuilt a number of times over the centuries, but it has never lost its unique personality or the monumentality of its urban layout. Medieval churches and 17th century palaces, bridges and stations, and buildings made of iron and glass are mirrored in the waters of the Seine, swathed in the magic of the evening lights. Paris is not merely the repository of centuries of memory, it is also the city of the avant-garde, the metropolis of order and intellectuality, and at the same time, it is the world's crossroads of dreams.